This week, the Down Your Way team has travelled 135 miles southwest of London to the Ewyas Harold district of Herefordshire, just on the South Wales border. Ewyas Harold, Ewyas spelled E-W-Y-A-S, is one of the largest villages in the area. It has 600 inhabitants and lies in the valley of the Doulas Brook, just off the A466 Hereford-Abergavenny Road. It's situated amidst a cluster of charming little villages in hilly, woody countryside with some glorious scenery and a network of country lanes leading to the many farms. It must be an absolute fabulous district in which to live, cut off from all the noise of the cities. It's very, very peaceful here. And we've come to a house in the main street of the village to talk to two people who live here to find out exactly what it is like. First of all, I have Arthur Tunstall, who's a local artist. Arthur, before I ask you about the countryside, can you clear up two things? What does Ewyas mean, and where did Harold come in?
Well, the origin of the first name Ewyas seems to be quite obscure, but the best connotation could be Vale of the Yew Trees.
Well, let's settle for that, shall we?
Yes, I think that's as good as any. There was a herald who rebuilt the castle here in the reign of Henry I, and although the castle no longer exists, there is a tumper on which it stood, and this overlooks the village.
And Harold gave his name to the village?
And Harold gave his name to the village. So now we get Ewyas Harold.
Well, now, can you describe the countryside around? I've driven round it. It looks absolutely superb in this sort of evening light. What's it like as a countryside?
Well, along the outskirts, you get wonderful shire land. The hills set Ewyas Harold into a bowl. You have both lush pastures, river valleys, grand hills. You get both quiet and calm countryside and towering mountains and rough moorland, which in other days was described as being rather terrifying.
What made you choose this district to come to for your painting?
Well, because there's everything here that a painter could want. The amazing western light which covers the land. It gives form, beauty, and colour enough to glut any artist's palette. The light that I speak of is curious in this part of the British Isles. It's something which I consider a gift from God. It shines upon the hills, ever changes over its contours. You find that the rivers reflect all this, and we get a complete marriage, as the old Dutch painters found, between the earth and the sky. And what more could in particular, could a watercolour painter require than this?
Well, you're obviously a chap who's got a job he loves, and good luck with your painting.
I thank you.
And now for life in the village itself, and we've got a housewife, Mrs. Jill Rees. In fact, we're in her house. What's it like to live in Ewyas Harold?
Very pleasant indeed. A townsperson coming here asks, what on earth do you find to do? But the opposite is in fact the case, because there are so many activities and organisations, it's difficult to find a free evening.
And it's just on the Welsh border. Is it still English, really? Or?
It is English, yes, it is, but with a strong Welsh accent here, as you can tell by my own voice.
Yes, I noticed that.
Yes.
Do most of the people work here, or do they go out to work?
No, I would say the majority work in Hereford, other than the farming community.
And what about life, when they're not working?
Yes, well, there are many organisations. We're all very keen on music and drama. There are, in fact, 3 local drama groups. The WI, which is a very strong WI, some 60 members. I know when one mentions WI, one immediately thinks of Jam and Jerusalem, but nothing could be further from the truth. We enter competitive drama with the WI drama group, and this year we won the County Shield for the best all-women's group, and in fact this was the 3rd occasion on which we'd won that particular award.
Now, is it an old village or a young village or a mixture of both?
This is a mixture, both in age and in people who have been born here and people who have come here to live.
And the peace, I mean, you don't get tired of the quiet?
Oh, no. Well, there isn't really very much quiet.
There isn't?
No. As I say, there are so many organizations. We have a village hall here, a rather large village hall, which was built to commemorate the ending of the last World War. And most of our activities are centered upon the hall. We have dinner dances and social evenings and lots of activities in the hall.
Well, I wonder if you can guess what that noise was. All I'll say is it's nothing to do with the countryside, because we've come to the centre of the village, over the baker's shop, a lovely smell coming up, I think they're Chelsea buns being cooked, to a jewellery workshop to talk to Miss Hilda Watkins, a designer and craftsman in gold and precious stones. I would suppose the most unlikely occupation you would expect to find in a little country village like Ewyas Harold, so an obvious question. Just let me say that noise was of gold pellets being run through the hand. Why did you choose a quiet village like this to do jewellery?
Because of the quietness of the village, peacefulness. It's nice to work with solitude.
Yes.
Because I live nearby, and because it's very cheap to work in a village.
Well, now, first of all, how did you qualify to do this? How did you become a jeweller?
I did a 3-year training initially at the Birmingham School of Jewellery. And then I've done 10 years practical work since then.
But you are primarily, then, first of all, a designer. So do you design every piece of jewellery?
Yes. It all starts with a request from a client. I start by doing a series of drawings, which I submit. The client then chooses a design, and I work from there.
So the client can either come here, him or herself, or by post, but they can't come and actually buy something in the shop, so to speak. This isn't a shop.
All the work I do is commissioned,
Yeah.
so therefore I haven't anything to sell for passing the trade.
No, I see. Well, now, with these pellets, which you heard just now, is that how you get your gold in the first instance?
Yes, those are gold granules, but I buy sheet gold and various other forms of gold, for instance, wire. In fact, I buy according to the article I'm going to make.
Well, now, you've got that sort of workbench there with lots of apparatus. What happens there?
Joining, heating and cleaning processes. I use colour gas, as you see. The blue granules there are from sulfuric acid, which is used for cleaning.
Good. And that bench with a sort of kidney-shaped bench, is that a jeweller's bench?
That's the traditional
Yeah.
shape for a jeweller's bench. The curved shape is because one sits to work there,
Yeah.
and I lean into it to support a shoulder or a hand.
And you've got a mini
When I-
hex saw. Well, is that what you actually cut the gold with?
Yes, that's a piercing saw with a very fine blade, which is used for cutting.
And the tray underneath?
That's very important because that collects filings and dust, which I carefully store to sell back to the bullion.
You collect the dust. Well,
firm.
look, there's an empty aspirin bottle there. If that was full of this dust, what would that be worth, roughly?
About £200.
200 pounds of dust. Well, now, in front of me, I've got lots of things which you have made. There's a beetle-shaped brooch. There's an amethyst pendant set in gold. There's a ring, I think it's meant to be a tree fungus with a diamond in it. All these things you've designed and made for clients. Can I just pick out two? First of all, I'm going to look at your finger, on your third finger of your left hand. You've got a watch in a ring. Now, I've never seen one of those before.
It isn't an original idea, but this is perhaps simpler than many of the earlier ideas that were on the market.
It's very good, and you can see it hasn't got covered up. Some of them are covered up.
Yes, the early ones were covered, but mine is simpler so that I can see the time more easily.
And my favourite of the lot is what looks like a double ring, like two cogs of gold joined together. Now, what exactly is this?
This is an interlocking wedding and engagement ring.
So the one with the... What's the stone?
The stone is tourmaline,
And that is the engagement ring.
yes. The general idea is that the two rings become one complete design rather than being two separate
Yeah, but I mean, the
rings.
chap who orders this, does he come along? Do you let him get the engagement ring, and then can he come back and get the wedding ring later?
No, he has to buy two at one time.
So he has to marry the girl.
Well,
Is he?
oh, indeed.
Well, that's very cunning of you. Okay, well, I congratulate you on this. I think this is a marvellous sort of occupation to have in this village like this, and long may you prosper. I gather you're very, very busy, so I better stop talking and let you get on with the work. Is that right?
Well, I certainly have more orders than I can cope with at the moment, but I just work steadily through and try not to keep people waiting too long.
Passing the bakery window, I noticed just now that there's a babysitter available and 5 nice kittens from a good mousing family. Well, that's part of village life, and we've come along the village now to Lower House to talk to Miss Pam Wright, who I believe is a ceramics designer. I think I would call you a potter. Are you a potter or not?
Well, strictly speaking, yes, you could say that I am a potter, but it can be slightly misleading because people tend to think of potters as being people who make functional wares, and I don't strictly do that. I take things much further and make things which are more decorative, while at the same time they could have a function.
Well, one other thing about why you may not be a potter, I've been to your workshop out there in what looked like an old cowshed, but in fact was what?
An old cider house, really.
But there was no potter's wheel.
No potter's wheel. I don't use a wheel at all.
So how do you mould your pottery or your ceramics?
I mould them by hand, and I use moulds. I make my moulds myself. If I want a new shape, then I make a new mould, and I cast into these things, and I put textures into them. I engrave on the surface of them, and all sorts of things.
I was asking just now when we were at the jewellery workshop, Miss Watkins, the advantage of working in a village like this. You live at home here.
Yes.
Is there a great advantage living in the country for your work?
Not specifically, except that being in the country, I see things surrounding me which I thoroughly enjoy and which I'm quite sure has quite a marked effect upon what I do.
Well, obviously it does, but for instance, there are 2 things which, I'm not being rude to, look like what could be used for a waistcoat basket, with engravings on it, and from the distance here, it looks like a sort of country scene. I don't know quite what it's meant to be. What was it meant to be when you did it?
It has some relationship to a country scene or a landscape, but I don't specifically go out to produce a landscape. But at the same time, I am very much influenced by the surroundings here, and this has an effect on what I do. But, as I say, I don't specifically go out to do this sort of scene.
Do you actually engrave on there, or how is it done? How has the effect got onto it?
I take prints off anything which I find interesting, which I feel can have a function for me. It could be from a piece of bark or stone or material of any kind. And then I construct these various textures together so that they produce something which I like the look of. And then I may, in fact, draw the whole thing together by engraving on the surface, drawing on it, and then colouring it afterwards.
You do add to the surface sometimes, but do you know what it's going to be like before you put the pressings there?
Not specifically, no. I make the pressings on various pieces of clay, and then I put them together, compose with them, so that they produce something which I feel happy with and which I like.
So someone can't come to you and order something because you mightn't be able to do the exact thing?
No, I can't do the exact thing. I can only attempt to produce the character of what they like, or what they've seen that I've produced before.
And is it quite fun when you've done something, hearing what other people think it is? Because there must be a lot of varying views.
Yes, it's fascinating, actually. You hear some quite unusual things, but it's interesting to hear this sort of thing because they see so many things that I don't see in them myself. So, you know, it's very varied and interesting to hear these things.
Do you operate in the same way as Miss Watkins? Do you have people coming here and giving you an order then, or do you show?
No, the way I've operated so far is to have exhibitions where I produce pieces of work which are for sale, and if people want me to repeat something, then I can attempt to do something which is similar, but I can't do an exact repeat. And I do sell through a very small number of retail outlets.
Well, there we are. Ewyas Herald has 2 most unusual ladies. I think good luck with it. I hope it goes well.
Thank you very much.
Well, so much for the unusual activities in the village, but as you will have gathered from what Arthur Tunstall was saying at the start, this is a wonderful countryside, and of course agriculture is the main, in fact very nearly the only industry. So we've come across the main road now to Court Farm to talk to a farmer, Glyn James. Glyn, I've been around and it seems to me there are a lot of rather smaller farms in other parts of the country. Are they mostly small?
Yes, mostly small, but some would be 400 acres. But
as
down
big
to,
as that?
Yes, but down to 50 and even perhaps down to 20, but mainly small farms.
How many acres have you got yourself?
420.
And what do you have on the acres?
Well, dairy cows, we'd have 95 dairy cows,
Mm.
and about 150 beef and dairy replacements, and about 170 acres of corn.
Right, well now let's get on to the milk fed. What sort of cows?
Friesian cows.
Now, everyone seems to have Friesians these days. Why is this?
Oh, well, they are the milking cow. They give a lot of milk.
Mm.
And of course they're a very good animal to cross with a Hereford bull, and the offspring is the best beef animal.
Well, you're in Herefordshire. Are your beef cattle, are they all Herefords?
Yes. Mainly Hereford and Hereford crosses. Of course, a few people have tried the foreign breeds, but, you know, some like them and some don't.
But you reckon, what's the good point about a Hereford? I mean, why does it produce such good beef?
Well, this year in particular, with the concentrate prices so high, that we may rely more on grass, and the Hereford would utilise this grass terribly well.
Well, now, it looks all very lush and green. I mean, you've got some good grass here.
Yes, it is. We've just had quite a lot of rain. It's just come in time after a terribly dry time.
Is it difficult farming? Because, again, wherever you go up and down hill. What about the hills for the
Well, yes, we would try not to plough too much of the hill land, because it would be quite difficult. The cost would be nearly twice, I should think, of the low ground.
Over 400 acres, how many people do you have to help you?
3 men.
Not a lot, is it?
Well, they're good men.
They're good men. Do you come of a farming stock yourself?
Yes.
Who owned this farm before?
Well, this is a rented farm,
Mm.
but my grandfather farmed here, and then my father, and now I do.
And do you reckon that this part of the country will stand up to the rest of the British Isles as a farming
Oh, yes.
area?
Yes. The county of Hereford is a very good county, and the soil is very good.
Do you get bad winters here? Because, I mean, it's very hilly. What about the snow?
Yes. Not terribly bad, no. But we do get snow, but we never get the worst of the weather.
Yeah. Well, anyhow, it's a lovely district to live, as we've discovered from everybody else.
Yes, I'm sure.
We've come now to talk to John Chance, who works on a farm at Great Corris in the hamlet of Kent Church. Like Glyn James, we were talking to just now, has farmed for about 20 years. How long have you been farming for?
Well, not quite as long. I've only been farming for 8 or 9 years.
And obviously on this farm there are a lot of sheep. How many roughly?
In the region of 200.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not absolutely sure.
Yeah. And what other farming is there on this farm?
Corn and beef.
Where did you learn your farming?
So much through tuition of the boys I work with on the farm, and also through young farmers.
Well, I want to ask you about the young farmers. I know there's a very flourishing club here. How many members in it?
I'm in the region of 80.
Are there?
Yes, as many as that.
What constitutes a young farmer? I mean, when do you stop being a young farmer?
Well, the age limit is 25 at the moment. I think they're going to raise it to 26, which will give me 1 more year.
1 more year?
Yes.
What sort of activities now?
Well, we go forward to the county rally. That is the main event of the year.
Yes.
Which gives us beef judging, sheep, and carcass judging, and amongst the many other things. Needlework for the girls.
Oh, it is mixed, is it?
Oh, yes, it is mixed, yes. Boys and girls.
That makes it all the more popular.
Yes, a lot popular. Back September, we had a rush of weddings.
Did you?
Yes, 3. Myself and 2 others.
Including yours?
Yes.
And do people come and lecture and teach you farming on the serious side?
Yes, we have different kinds of people come to a meeting and give us a talk and a demonstration, or we go on farm walks where we're taught beef judging or sheep, whichever the case may be.
And where do you have your meetings? In the village?
At the hall,
Yeah.
yes.
And what about social activities there? I'm sure there are a lot of those.
Well, other than dances, we've got to travel either to Abergavenny or Hereford. We put on ever so many dances at the local hall.
Do you?
Yes.
And what about acting? I hear you're a bit of an actor. I don't know if you are, but some of the young farmers.
Well, to tell you the truth, the play got through to the final at Peyton before I joined the cast.
Did it? It did very well. That was last year.
That was last year, yes. We did very well indeed. We came 5th in the national.
Well done you. And what about sporting activities outside? What do you do with those?
Well, for the boys, there's rugby and football. The girls are mainly connected with hockey and netball. And myself, then, I'm very interested in tug-of-war.
Ah, does that take place every year?
Yes, that is an annual event at the county rally.
And are you the champions or not?
We were, but sadly to say we're not at the moment, no. We've lost a lot of boys through getting married.
Oh.
This is the biggest
They
trouble.
can't pull anymore.
They can't pull anymore, no.
Just one final question. Here you are, a young chap, living in the country. Do you live on the farm?
No, I don't live on the farm.
Where do you live?
I live back in Hereford, actually.
And you commute to the country?
Yes, 12 miles there and 12 back.
Is that
every
because you
day.
couldn't find a house here?
Yes, houses are very scarce at the moment. Unless you want to buy, and then we're having trouble. You can't get a mortgage now.
No, well, I hope you do get one. But are as many young people coming into farming as there were in the past?
Oh, yes, I definitely think so. You know, if the money was a little bit higher, I think there'd be a lot more young lads and girls interested.
Anyhow, it's a great life so far as you're concerned?
Yes, very great. I enjoy every minute of it.
We're finishing our visit to Ewyas Harrow by something very typical of the countryside. We've come up the old Ralston Road to see Miss Patricia Robinson on her goat stud farm, and we are looking through a window. The pane has been broken with 3 lovely little white faces looking out, 3 white kids, and on our way we passed an enormous goat, one of the biggest I've ever seen, with a very big beard. First of all, what was he? I mustn't call him a billy goat. He's a male goat.
He's a male goat, yes. We don't call them billy goats today.
How old is he?
He's 3.
He looked a little bit fierce. Now, are they ever dangerous, goats?
Oh, they can be. I mean, if they're scared of you or if they have no trust in you, they can be killers. They can be very dangerous because they strike with their front feet, and they can really break a shoulder or an arm or anything. But if they're brought up to have complete trust in their owner, and they're never frightened or use a stick, they can be as calm, as cool as anything, most friendly creatures.
How many goats you got here?
31.
Of which, how many male goats?
I've got 2 male goats, 17 milkers and followers.
Well, can we come on to goat's milk now? First of all, do you deliver milk from here?
Yes, I deliver milk wherever it's wanted, all over the countryside.
The kid's just bitten my coat. What's the advantage of goat's milk?
Well, the advantages of goat's milk to people with particularly bovine allergies. Now, that means that they cannot take anything to do with cows or beef or anything. And they can drink. Well, usually results in them getting infantile eczema or having infantile eczema. And this is one of the main purposes of goat's milk, that they can take this when they can't take the cow's milk, which causes the eczema very often. But it does help in all sorts of other things like asthma, and diabetics can take it. People with ulcers, unable to take much solid food, can take it. And it's the diet itself is very strict, but it is effective.
But when you deliver it, now, I mean, how long does it keep?
Well, I deliver it in 2 different ways. I either deliver it freezer cooled, and people with freezers can then freeze it. Yeah. Or I deliver it deep frozen in insulated boxes, and they can put it in their refrigerators where it will keep for about 10 days.
Is this unusual that you can freeze milk?
Well, you can't freeze cow's milk efficiently, but you can freeze goat's milk, and it'll keep frozen in a deep freeze quite all right for a whole year.
Really?
Yes.
Now, first of all, can I get the subject of beards? Now, the male goat has a beard. Do the females?
They have smaller beards.
Smaller beards.
Yes.
Because he's got a very long one indeed. I've never seen anything like
But of course, you can more or less can control a male goat by his beard more effectively than you can control him by any other means. And once you've got hold of his beard, you've got more control than any other way.
What about the goat smell? Now, he ponged a little bit, and all the music hall jokes about, you know, I've got a goat and he's got no nose, how's he smell? Terrible, and all that sort of thing. But, I mean, do they smell, basically?
Well, during the breeding season, yes, horribly. They're perfectly revolting during the breeding season, but only the male goat.
Yeah.
And that's because of the musk gland on the top of his head. So in the breeding season, we do not invite people in to see the male goats.
Now, this kid is biting your finger, but in spite of that, do they make good pets or not?
Well, certainly not. I mean, I'm absolutely adamant about any child being given a billy kid or a male kid as a pet because they grow miles too big and fierce and nasty and smell. But a female kid for an older child is a lovely pet. But, of course, they do grow, and they grow quicker than the children. And I don't know whether people realize that they need quite a lot of food. They're quite expensive to keep.
And they nibble.
And they do. They chew you to bits.
And one final thing. You've demonstrated today that you have a smoking goat. We saw,
Yes.
What's his name down there, smoking?
Moorcock, yes, Boston Moorcock.
Why do they like smoke?
We don't seem to know. They like tobacco.
Yeah.
Because as I have a visitor here who's an army mascot, a regimental mascot, a goat, and he's taught to jump up and take a cigarette out of your mouth, and they love tobacco, and so I think that's why they like the smoke, and it also calms them. If they're very het up or anything, if I just puff some cigarette smoke in my goat's nose, he just calms down.
And there it's time for us to leave the village of Ewyas Harold with its smoking goats and all the lovely countryside around it. Certainly some of the most beautiful scenery I've seen since I've been doing Down Your Way. Next week, the Down Your Way team goes north to Scotland, to South Queensferry in West Lothian, and I hope you'll join us there.